welcome to all of you, both the people that are here offline as well as the people that are online. Warm welcome on behalf of Saxion Studium Generale, also on behalf of Shelter City Deventer, for this discussion on human rights for the future. And I'm really pleased to be here today. My name is Jan Reinder, but not just me, but also being here with Fawaz and Mohammad Aziza. I will introduce them in a few seconds from now. But I'm also quite interested who are here in the audience, physically present at the moment. And can I see hands of the people that are from the minor general development? Okay, yeah, so that's around 15 people here in the front. And I think we also have the minor intercultural work. Who are from the minor intercultural work? Okay, perhaps that is also more online, not too many people here in the room. And then we have the minor global citizenship. Yeah, quite a few people. The diversity office. Any people? And then we have other people. So who are other people? So not from any of the... Excellent, welcome. Welcome to all of you. And it's going to be, I think today's going to be a really interesting discussion because as far as I'm concerned, so I have prepared a few questions. Mohammed and Fawaz have prepared some stories that I want to share, but I would be really pleased if we would, as much as possible, have a discussion both with the people here in the room as well as with the people that are following the live stream at the moment. So I will pretty much prioritize at any moment the questions you might have over the questions I have or whatever. So if you have at any moment a question, let us know, and we will give you an opportunity to ask the question. Can I see hands of the people for whom English is not their first language? Yeah, so that's all of us here today. So we're going to be very relaxed about language. If you are more comfortable asking your question in Dutch than in English, feel free to ask it in Dutch. And also, I'm going to make a lot of English mistakes today, many more people, so we're in this together. But if you want to ask a question in Dutch, feel free. I will translate it into English and I'll ask it in English. So that is completely relaxed. Well, then let's look at the topic of today. Because why are we here today? Because the 10th of December is International Human Rights Day. So a very important day for us. And the reason why it's the Human Rights Day on the 10th of December is because the Universal Declaration on Human Rights was adopted on the 10th of December of 1948. So 3 years after the end of Second World War, the world community got together in the United Nations and said, we don't want these horrors anymore. And we're going to adopt a declaration that serves for all human rights. This is also why you'll see in 2 days the Nobel Peace Prize will be ceremonially awarded. So we already know who have won. It is a freedom of press activists from the Philippines and Russia, but in 2 days it will be ceremonially awarded. And this Universal Declaration on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it's incredibly important, and I'll touch on a few elements because it says the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all people and all nations. So it's really a universal declaration. In principle, all the people in the world are covered by it. Well, and what does it say? It says, for instance, in Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Beautiful aspiration. Well, we'll hear soon what, how this freedom and equality and dignity and rights actually plays out in two specific contexts. But the aspiration, and it says in Article 3, everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of person. So also, but it's not just about freedoms, it's also about what you have a right to. So for instance, in Article 25, it will say, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and of his family. So it's not just about that you cannot be, that you're free as a person, but also what you are entitled to, what rights you have. And again, I'm really curious to hear later from Fawaz and Mohammed how this plays out in the context of Gaza and also in the Kurdish areas in Syria. And so what this discussion will be, in the first part, we'll look at the situation with human rights in the world at the moment on the basis of the two cases. And in the second part, it will be more a reflection, what does this mean for us? So how do I relate to this as a person? How should we relate to this as the Netherlands? So that is what we'll look at a bit later on in this discussion. But first, let's start with and I see that there are 16 people currently online. That is really nice to know. So nice to have the audience there. And We want to start with a small quiz that everybody can participate in. Please feel free to get your mobile phone, because it's a short Menti quiz on the human rights situation in the world at the moment. And behind me, you will see how to get there. Please feel free to go to menti.com. So that is menti.com of manti.com. En dan voer je in, then you enter 3530 5482. So 3530 5482. And I'll wait for a minute in order to give people the opportunity to get there. So 3530 5482, and you will immediately be asked a first question. The past 30 years, the number of armed conflicts has increased, stayed roughly the same, or has decreased. So what do we think? First question, I'll give a bit more time because people are still logging in. 10 more seconds. Yeah, excellent. So thanks so much. Let's take a look at the results we have here. So people are really split on it. And actually, if we could go to the next slide. What you see here in the graph is you see a graph of the global trend in armed conflict. You'll see, and it's the yellow dotted line. That is the total. The total of it's a warfare index. And as you can see, the number of the number of wars, or the warfare index, has actually decreased over the past 30 years. So in that sense, the world has become a safer place. But also, it's interesting to notice that for the past 10 years, there's an uptick in violence again. So that should be very worrying. Thanks so much. Let's go to the next question. Somebody is multitasking here. The number of forcibly displaced people in the past 10 years. What do you think it did? Did it double, stay the same, or did it halve? And forcibly displaced people, for the people that these are people that were forced away from their home. So people who didn't have a choice to stay at their place, but they were forcibly. And here we see very broad agreement, and actually people are quite well aware. I think we can continue to the result. And indeed,
yes,
the number of forcibly displaced people has doubled. Fawaz, you have a...
So I have just a comment on this question, actually.
Please, yeah.
Forcibly displaced people, does it mean like by the disasters, natural disaster, or by wars, civil wars?
No, it means...
Because it differs.
Yeah, it means by wars and violence and conflict. Yeah, it's a very good question. And if we could go on to the next question. And here you'll see a graph of the number of forcibly displaced people at the moment, and you'll also see that every violent conflict will actually lead to an uptick. So you'll see that in 2011, at the start of the Syria crisis, you will see a large increase in the number of forcibly displaced people. You will see the start of the war in Yemen. You will see the Venezuela crisis, and currently the Tigray crisis in Ethiopia. So every crisis leads to an enormous uptick in the number of people forcibly displaced. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next question. What do you think that happened to the number of free countries over the past 15 years? What do you think happened with the number of free countries? And I see a question in the audience. Yeah.
What do you mean with a free country?
Yeah, thanks so much. I think that's a really good question. So it is every year Freedom House researches how many countries in the world are free. And what they mean with free is that civil liberties are respected, that you have independent judiciary, that you're free to express your opinion, that you have all these kinds of freedoms. And they make one list of it. Yeah, thanks so much. So what do you think over the past 15 years happened to the number of free countries in the world? And I think we can go on to the results. So again, it's interesting whether it stayed the same, whether it decreased. And here you will see the result. What you see is that the number of free countries is decreasing at the moment, and the number of not free countries is increasing. and the number of partially free countries is staying the same. So this is a really worrying sign. So if you speak about human rights, the trend at the moment when it comes to civil liberties and freedoms is actually on the decline. And then we'll have one final question. The number of people living in extreme poverty, did it increase over the last 30 years, stay roughly the same, or did it decrease? What do you think that happened? The people living in extreme poverty, again a question.
In percentage.
The total numbers. And as well as percentages, I think it will both hold. It will both hold. Thanks so much. Yeah, people are busy answering. Very interesting. So here we're really split. So a bit less than half thinks it has increased, and a bit over half think it has decreased. And we can go on to the result. And here you will see the result. And this is actually some really good news. So the number of people living in extreme poverty decreases both in absolute terms as well as in relative terms. So there is less people living in extreme poverty. A major reason for this is economic growth in Asia. So this is really one of the reasons that is triggering a decrease in extreme poverty. Thanks so much. We had more questions prepared, but I think we'll leave it at this. This kind of gives you a super short feeling of how are we doing at the moment with human rights in the world. And now I want to really zoom in on two situations. And for the first situation, I have with me here Fawaz Ahmad from Syria. He is a research assistant for the Political Science Institute in Leiden. And also he's a former colleague of yours with the Saxion University. Fawaz, thanks so much for being here with us. And if I'm correct, your background is from the Kurdish parts of Syria. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. I'm coming from the northeast of Syria. I'm from the Kurdish ethnicity, but I grew up in Damascus, so I had a quite long time in Damascus with other communities also. So.
Yeah.
So may I introduce myself?
Yeah, please.
So, yeah, well, as Jan said, I'm doing the research assistant role with the University of Leiden. The project is more focusing on the peace negotiation and the conflict in Syria. And also I'm at the same time a student of the master program in the political science, again in the University of Leiden. So I'm proud to be here today to talk about my people or our struggle in Syria, Kurds, Arabs, or other communities, because we have a lot of struggle with the Assad regime, and so today is a good opportunity for me. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And the second guest we'll have later on is Mohammad Aziza. He is a human rights activist from Gaza, working for the organization called Gisha, and he's here for the Shelter City program. And he's been in Deventer from September till December. Mohammed, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for hosting. My name is Mohammed, and enjoying having you and looking forward a good panel and discussion about the situation of Gaza.
Thanks so much. So these are the two situations we will be focusing on. And for this, we have a final Mentimeter question to ask you. It is the open question, Rens. If you hear, what questions would you have for our two panelists? So what is it you would like to know about life in Gaza or life in the northern parts of Syria? So any questions you have, let me see, and I think Rens is moving the Mentimeter there. Yeah, so what do you want to take? What do you want to take from this session? I think we need to go to a previous question, Rens. Is that possible? Then we use this one. No, it's fine. We use this open question. So you find an open question, and the question is: so what questions do you have? What would you like to know from both speakers? You will have opportunities for questions all the time, but I think it's nice for us to know what the questions are you have. So please fill it out on your phone, on your computer, if you're behind your computer. What questions do you have for both speakers? What is it that you would like to know? Yeah, so people can continue this, but let me start with, people can continue contributing questions. We will see them behind us. Let me start with you, Fawaz, and let's start on this point of daily life. What can you say about daily life in the northern parts of Syria? What is it like?
Well, of course, the question actually differs from before the crisis and also after, because we are really in a like big change. It's extreme change between the past, like before the 2011 and after. Yeah. So may I ask you, like, which part are you more interested to hear? Like, maybe that's the also.
Well, I guess at the moment, but also you can perhaps say what has changed over the past few years.
Okay, actually, we can say like it's like a period that is actually consists of 3 stages, like different period. So, like there is the before the Syrian revolution, and also there is also after the Syrian revolution until the fight against ISIS, because we have suffered a lot from the ISIS. Also, we were like there is a long story there also, and also there is after ISIS. So we have 3 parts actually. So what's changed actually is from the I can talk more about like the Syrian regime before the 2011, like what was the situation of the Kurds like in the daily life. I actually, as I said, I grew up in Syria, in Damascus, and I was in an Arabic neighborhood as a Kurdish child like there. So my daily life like was, I could not really get engaged with my neighbors. I could not really go out to play with the children. I didn't speak Arabic. And also, when I started my primary school, actually, it was a terrible moment for me. The first day in the school, like, I went to the school, I was like not able to talk with my friends, colleagues, like peers, because I was shy, and not speaking Arabic. And the school, the education was not in my mother tongue. So that's actually not only the case in Damascus, it's also the situation in the northeast of Syria, where you have like the Kurdish communities who are forced to learn or to get educated in another language, which they don't speak actually. So this starts from that time. Like, imagine like I was not able to talk in my own language. This is not only in school, it's also like in government bodies, government institutions also. So it starts from the language challenge, and it ends up with the like how can I say, like discrimination case that I have lived in Syria, in Damascus. But that I see that it was just a situation that's made by the Assad regime, because there were like the regulation, the rules, they were trying to describe the Kurdish community as a second-class citizen. So this is that. So I can just make a short sentence, like the Kurds were second-class citizens in the past, before the 2011. After the 2011, it was a case of Kurdish race in the region, in the northeast of Syria, and they were trying to get gathered by parties, by army groups or armed groups. So then the ISIS attack started, and this actually made a very big change in the Arabic attribute against the Kurdish communities. Like the ISIS fight against the Kurdish communities was described as not only an Islamic attack to the Kurdish region, but also it was more like coming from the past experience of the Arabs with the Kurds, or vice versa. So they wanted to just make some how can I say, like it was a described as a fight that we want to fight the Kurds in the area because of hate speech, for example, because of discrimination. So it was more or less not only attack of Islamic states, but also something that's really created by the feelings of these communities. I'm not blaming the Arabic community, actually, but I'm saying that it is something that was built by the Syrian regime in the past, where they actually raised the hate speech between the Syrian Kurds and the Syrian Arabs also. So after the defeat of ISIS, actually, there was a new process starting in the northeast of Syria, where they had a coalition with the international community, international great powers, let's say, and they are actually raising in the region, and that's also something that it is unlike the previous situation where the Kurds were denied, where the Kurds were neglected also. So it differs.
Exactly. And when you speak about, so you're describing a situation where Kurdish citizens are second-class citizens, so they're denied language right. How does that play out? So does it mean it's more difficult to get an education? Is it more difficult to get a job? Is it more difficult to get a house?
I mean, it of course has its own consequences on the finding a job, or like if you go to the government institution, actually you will maybe 1 out of 10 will be a Kurdish employee.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter like which institution is it or which ministry is it. So the Kurdish people actually were, not able to get into for instance, the political science faculty in Damascus. You have to be Alawi, you have to be Sunni, or there are some conditions actually where they were informally illustrated.
Yeah.
So this is in terms of education. For the work, of course, there was a second priority for the Kurdish citizens. And even in some, I can say 500,000 Kurdish people in Syria, they were not holding their citizenship even. So they were not able to apply for university, for school, whatever, which primary or secondary. And also they were not able to apply for jobs. So more or less...
It's a significant group of people that hardly had any rights or possibilities in society.
Yeah, because they are not even considered as citizens. So.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of good questions on it. Thanks so much, by the way. And you can also ask the questions here. One is, how is it possible to enforce human rights in Syria whilst war is going on? So, what do you think of that? Is it possible or is it not possible?
I mean, for time being, I think it's impossible. It is because there are no legal bodies, or formal bodies in these regions. Even if you consider the Assad regime as a known government, formal government for the country, but they also said they have their own, they have their own crimes, their own they do what they do, but there's no accountability in the area. So I think for the time being it's impossible. But what is possible actually to reach these records of the crimes, whatever are the breaking of these human rights principles. So this could be all recorded because we have a lot of witnesses. We have a lot of people who are recording.
For future accountability
exactly.
also. Exactly. So that's a nuanced answer. So it's not possible to uphold human rights during a conflict, but you can make sure there is accountability and there can be legal proceedings after a conflict. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Perhaps one more question before we go on to Mohammed. And I really like it. So in Holland we tend to look a lot at our future. How do people in northern Syria look at their lives? So do they look a lot at the future, or are they more engaged with day-to-day, short-term? How is it?
I mean, of course there is a permanent struggle with the daily life, because everything is very expensive there, if we talk about the daily needs of the people. But what I see from my relatives, or at least from my own network, The people are more, think about the future of their children. So that's why you can see every father, he's thinking about migration, asylum in another country, going outside the country. Even those who have decided to return to Syria, they are now willing to leave it again. So,
thanks so much. I think we have another. I'm so pleased with the number of questions. Thanks so much.
What did the formation of Rojava did for the Kurdish people, like in the daily lives?
Okay, and perhaps you can explain a bit about the formation of Rojava. Very shortly.
As geographic, you mean like Rojava, like information about Rojava? So, in which Rojava is the north of Syria.
Like what did the formation of Rojava do for the people that were connected to it, or I don't know.
I'm not sure if I understood the question well, but Rojava is in the northeast of Syria, or the north of Syria. It's a region like the Kurdish cities, 3-4 different cities. So, and it's just a name where we Kurds call it is Rojava. It means the west part of Kurdistan. So this is its explanation. So, if you mean the formal.
How does it influence the daily lives of Kurds that there is a place where they are autonomic, and they have autonomy and stuff?
Thanks so much for clarifying.
Yeah, there's a what we can call it self-administration, which is actually the area is governed by some of the parties there, but they are not recognized by the international community. There's only armed or military coordination, collaboration, cooperation between these groups. So still there is nothing politically, that we can call it Rojava, or that they can, play a role in the international community.
Yeah. So for the time moment, it's more a name than. And I see more questions, but actually I want to also give the word to Mohammed. So I'll perhaps we'll go in the second part. I'll gladly go back to you. Mohammed, you are you come from Gaza, and you will actually also go back to Gaza in next week. And you brought a short movie clip, to share a bit about what the situation in Gaza is like. Shall we show the movie clip?
Yeah, we can start with it. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks so much for that, Rent and Mohammed. And Rent, if we could go back to the questions in the Menti, then I'll also ask some of those to Mohammed. But Mohammed, perhaps you can say, what did we just see in the movie clip?
Yeah, I see in the movie clip. This clip was built before 10 years. The situation remained the same until now. That the main problem of Gaza, it's closed from everywhere, from three different parties from Israel. I may speak about the land defense and also the sea one, and also with the Egyptian one. We speak about the most densest area in the world, with more than 2 million people live there, 70% from them under the age of 30 years old, and their main problem is access for the fundamental rights. So access to medication is a problem, access to job, to education, access to every fundamental rights become like prohibited for them. And yeah, that's the really situation happening in Gaza.
So if you live in Gaza and you're like 18 to 20 years old, what is life like then?
Yeah, so living in Gaza, like it's different because I can understand now how it's different. Like after like being here for like 70 days, so I can understand. So we have like the problem of the electricity. So you have to take care of the electricity every day, day by day. We speak about 8 hours of electricity per 24 hours. We speak about like access to water. We speak about also, I mean, the opportunity to travel. It's easy from here, like to go from Netherlands to Belgium to Germany to everywhere. No one will stop you to ask about why you do that. But in Gaza, if you want to go, if you get a scholarship to study out of Gaza, you are not able to do that. If you want to find like a medication, you don't find it. And you speak about the most youth committee in the world, if I can say, and they are not able to find, I mean, to survive their day. You study at the university, you graduate, but you don't find job. So you become like as a stateless life. That's the idea. So the employment rate is very high, and the infrastructure are not able to cover all the needs of the people, and it become like the most biggest prison in the world, Gaza.
And how large, if you compare Gaza to the Netherlands, how large is Gaza then?
It's like a really good question. Maybe my buddy know the municipality here which look like Gaza. Which one?
So it's so Gaza, where 2.4 million people live, it's as large as the municipality of Emmen.
Yeah.
So that is, so it's like not being able to leave the municipality. So you're there and you cannot leave, and without a lot of prospects.
I'm there, and also we become like the most dentist area. I mean, we speak about like 5,900 for each kilometer, and that's the problem. So we speak about less land and much people, no opportunity, no safety also. So in the last 10 years, we speak about the most distracted for military operations, Israeli operations happening in Gaza. A lot of like thousands of people like killed, 100,000 of home distracted, and the more bad and sad things for me, the dream of the people there, how it become the life when you like just suspected a new round of aggression. And I want also to add that the problem of Gaza, it's not a material problem, it's more a political one. So Israel since 2007 until now, like signing the closure in Gaza because it's described it as a hostile entity because Hamas is there, and they like all the pressure is put on the people. So we speak about like a collective punishment happen day by day for the people of Gaza.
And one of the questions I saw on the Mentimeter is, do you miss Gaza? Do you miss Gaza when you're here?
For sure, I'm going back to Gaza like next week. I miss Gaza. Gaza is very beautiful. We speak about the most sunny place in the world, Gaza, the most beach, like also the delicious food, the nice people. You can stop anyone in the street and and ask for help. And they are very educated people. Speak about 99% like know how to read to write, and they are. Yeah, it's nice, so I miss Gaza.
Yeah, I can imagine, and you also, so you will be, you're still, I think the question is kind of also, so you still live in Gaza, so you're going back there, you have your life there, you have your family there, so it's back to daily life for you. And another question from the Mentimeter, what would improve the life circumstances of the people in Gaza?
Leaving the blockade of Gaza, that's the key to change the situation in Gaza and let the people use the opportunity for economy. You know, we don't speak just about traveling out of Gaza, it's also about the stuff which enter to Gaza in economically wise. The people want to do their startup, but also they don't able to get the material to start there, so give them the opportunity and leaving the closure. That's the only options to, if you give the people the ability to create their own life, create their own business, and like be integrated. No need for any type of aggression.
Exactly. And you work, a question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Do you think the main problem starts at the political leaders, that they should be replaced, or doesn't that solve the problem, or should several other communities / countries be involved in this, and that it's more a worldwide problem that they can solve it alone with a different leadership?
I don't get the idea of the question, but I want to understand his question.
Yeah, so do you think, is the problem primarily political leadership? So if the leadership would be replaced, would that help the situation, if I understand your question correctly? Is that your question?
Yeah, it's like right now they have a certain...
We will need a microphone, otherwise the people online cannot hear.
Yeah. Right now, I don't know what the government does look like, or who is in the government. But if they should replace the government they have right now, and could another government fix Gaza, or is it more a bigger problem that they also need more help from other countries, or like to solve the war with Israel or something?
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I think like. The first thing we have to think about the roots of the problem. Where is the roots of the problem of Gaza? I believe the roots of the problem is the occupation, the Israeli occupation to the Palestinian land in the border of 1967 is the roots of the problem. Yes, we speak about now like a changing of governments on the Palestinian side, especially in Ramallah and also in Gaza, like a role. And I do believe that we should, as a Palestinian, have like a one government in order to try to advocate about the rights of the Palestinians themselves. So changing governments, changing the people who are in the political, doing the elections, that's something very important to move forward, solving the problem itself.
Yeah. So changing government in Gaza and having a unitary government for the Palestine people could help, but it's not solving the complete solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the first things for me and from my practice in working in human rights, I feel that I totally believe that the problem itself in the occupation. So if Israel like leave the occupation and let the Palestinians give them the opportunity, there is no any rationals for the Palestinians to do anything against Israel.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much for this. And I think we've covered, so we have now taken a very short look at the situation in North Syria and the situation in Gaza. And that brings me actually to the question, so what for us? And I want to ask you, if you could all get your phone again, I would like to ask you 5 very short questions on this. If we could get them on Mentimeter, both for the people here in the audience as well as for the people that are watching this stream online. And these are questions about what does this mean for us? And let me see whether it's the same code. I think it's the same Mentimeter code. So 3530 and then 5482. And what you see here is you see 5 slides that you can answer by using a slider. And you can either say you strongly disagree with a statement and you give it a 1, or you can say that you strongly agree with a statement and then you can give it 5 points. And the first question is it important for you? So as an individual, you are now at this discussion. Is it important for you to know about the human rights situation in the world, in this specific case in Gaza and North Syria? So that's the first question. The second question is there something you're doing at the moment or would like to do in support of human rights in the world? So for instance, are you a member of an international NGO that is promoting international human rights, or are you using this when you vote politically? Is it something that you take into account? So that is the second question. The third question is about, should Netherlands provide humanitarian assistance to people? Fourth question, should the Netherlands also try to improve the human rights situation in the world? And finally, if needed, should the Netherlands act alone, or should we do it together with the European Union, the United Nations, or NATO, or should we, if needed, also go at it ourselves? And let's see. I think people are still voting. Yeah, let's see. I think it's quite a few people have already voted, and I think the results are really interesting. So people are quite firm, and it's important for you to know about the human rights situations in the world. Would somebody be willing to say something about why is it important for you to know about the human rights situation in the world? Is there anybody who would like to say about why this is important for you? Some hesitancy still. I'll give you a bit more time. Excellent.
Well, it's... mag het ook in het Nederlands?
Ja, you can say it in Dutch.
Ja, het is niet vanzelfsprekend dat je mensenrechten hebt. Dus volgens mij is het daarom heel belangrijk om te weten wat je mensenrechten zijn. En nog belangrijker om te weten wie dat niet hebben. En die mensen hulp te geven.
Yeah, so what was just being said, it's not self-evident for one to have human rights. And by hearing about the situation in other countries, it makes you aware of the fact that you do have human rights and what these human rights are.
I think that we are living a life like we're interconnected people. So I'm happy to see that the people would like to learn about the situation of human rights and also in the world. That means that they are aware, or they worry about the other people who are involved in the problem, and they want to see how they can find a way to help them. That's also very important.
Yeah, thanks so much, and also for you, Fawaz. Why is it so you accepted the invitation to speak here about the human rights situation in northern Syria? What is the importance for you of telling that story?
Well, he's walking. Oh, so of course, to make the people that they know about the things that the struggle of the Kurdish people in Syria. That's the first step that I actually was aiming to. But I believe that the European Union as a one part can do some change in our region. So that's why I feel it's very important to tell the stories here to the people. Perhaps in some way they can have their own influence on their governments. So
yeah, and that is something I'll gladly ask you more about. But if we start with the first bit of what you say it's important for me to share also about the Kurdish people in Syria. Why is that important for you?
Yeah, I mean, of course, in the time that there is social media outlets that are sharing many information about the area, but also I can see that there are other countries who are, I can call them not friends of the Kurdish people. I mean, they could be the neighbor countries, some countries that they are really trying to disuse this information or give another picture about the Kurdish people. So what's important for me that the international community knows the people of Europe, of the Western people, they know what's exactly going on the ground.
Yeah, and also to balance out the stories that you see in the media and to give your perspective on this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks so much. And if we look at the second question, is there something you are doing or would like to do in support of human rights? For both of you, what can individuals do? So you hear these stories, they can be quite touching, and it can also be frustrating, or you can feel powerless in not being able to engage. But what can individuals do?
Yeah, that's a great question also. That I think that when the people know about the story, about the injustice happening there, and try from his knowledge, spread the information to others. That's something very important because you use your knowledge to advocate about the problem itself, and you invite more people to listen about the story itself, and you can also try to find from your position how you can help this situation. For Gaza, for example, there is a lot of group and activism and community here in Netherlands that you can, through the access to it, you can know more information, and you can also help to improve the situation of Gaza.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting. I'm quite also interested by your story, Mohammed, because you are working in Gaza, but for an Israeli NGO. How is that? How do people look at that?
It's not easy. You know, I'm working for this organization since 10 years. The people of Gaza, because they are Palestinian, they are afraid from Israel. So sometimes they think that this organization, like maybe do like dangerous for them. So sometimes it takes time to convince them. But the idea that our problem is the Israeli occupation, to work with the independent Israeli human rights organization, and to try to use their ability to access to the Israeli street, the Israeli media, and also the people, the international community, when they listen to Israeli human rights organization, that's meaningful for them. So this is why I choose this one, in order to speak about the problem of Gaza itself. But it's not easy.
Thanks so much. And also for you, Fawaz, if individuals want to contribute to the human rights situation, either in the world or in a specific area, what can people do?
I mean, first of all, like you're all, sorry, I'm just curious if this is working. Do you hear me like well?
I think it works really well.
So, okay. So, yes, you're all educated people. So I believe that the governments, the European governments actually, they do have like a principal agent connection with their people. So they serve their people. They look into and very interested in the interests of their peoples actually. So you are educated people. Maybe in someday you become like an employee in the Foreign Affairs Ministry or like in a very policy-making body. So I would be very happy if you could have any idea about the struggle in the Middle East and you could do any change. Maybe someday you are able to make a decision that's very relevant to our country or our region. So of course this is the long-term aim that I'm looking for. But the other things actually is I'm really like aiming that the European people could be like at least look as friends for the Kurdish people in the area, because we are in a region where we are described as non-religious people for the ISIS, Islamic radical views. We are described as terrorists, like for the Turkish government, or we are described as the agents of the West by the Syrian regime, or the Syrian opposition. Also, they try to tell us that we are separatists, like we want to divide the country. So we have no friends there. Of course, my aim is to make friends here for the Kurdish people.
Exactly, because that's the question that just came in from the online stream, whether the Kurds in Syria are now exposed to threats or a genocide, either from Syria or from others. So is there such a threat at the moment for the Kurdish people in Syria?
Of course. I mean, my own city, Kobani, was really under threat actually in September. So my father was there actually. He fled to Turkey. He was very afraid that the Turkish government will attack. There are also examples from the past 2 years also where the Turkish government had its own movements in the area. Also by the regime. There are no stable connection or relationship with the Syrian regime. Neither the opposition, the temporary Syrian government also. So there are fears about any genocide, or at least like a new displacement movements that could happen in the future, the near future.
And that is actually a really intense story, because if I understand correctly, Kobani was in 2014. There was also a huge fight there against Islamic State by the Kurdish forces in Syria. So that's so your city, within 10 years, your city is fought for 2 times. So imagine that, like the level of violence there and the level of uncertainty that brings. So yeah, thanks very much. Thanks also for the question. Another question that was sent. Many questions. We have so little time, so many questions. I really like this question. So Mohammed and Fawaz, for both of you, is there something you can learn from each other's situation? So, Fawaz, can you learn something from the situation in Gaza? And Mohammed, can you learn something from the situation in the north of Syria? Perhaps, Mohammed, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you. It is the same, the killing.
Sorry?
What I can learn from the situation itself, because it's like I look at the injustice there the injustice in Gaza and also the injustice in the north of Syria. So if we're speaking about the killing there, but at the same time, you speak that the people there want to continue their life, to searching for dignity and opportunity. And that's something normal, not just for people who living in Gaza or northern Syria. It's like something on the human being itself.
Thanks so much. And Fawaz, I have a slightly different question for you because a new question came in and we only have 10 minutes left. And that is, what do you think of the US troops leaving parts of Syria in 2000, I think it happened in 2019. Mm-hmm. What was the effect of that?
I mean, the effect, of course, was extremely, there were some big consequences on that. The people were really feeling strong when there were some, US-owned parts of the cities, because they were really sure that the Turkish government would not attack the area because some political issues. But then when they left the area, actually, and when the attack started, of course the people left their houses, they left their the things that they have built after the ISIS attack, because after defeating the ISIS, the people returned to the region and tried to rehabilitate their houses. But when this happened, actually, it left the people alone against the coming attacks, and they just left the area also. So,
and then a question following on that, because so clearly it was one of the questions that was also in the Mentimeter before. Like, has foreign interventions always been positive? So clearly, foreign interventions have not always been positive in the case of North Syria, and I can imagine the same is true of Gaza. What could the Netherlands or the European Union do to make the situation better? And I will ask the question both very briefly. What do you think in the case of North Syria? What could the Netherlands or the EU do to improve the situation?
Well, of course, there is something to do by the Security Council of the United Nations, that the Netherlands or the other countries also can play a big role in changing the situation there. When it comes to the Kurdish people, we really look forward to the Netherlands or other governments also, that they can actively influence or try to maybe change the Turkish government's view, the Syrian government's view toward the Kurds, and try to enforce these governments to at least be easier with the cultural, political rights of the Kurdish communities there.
So the suggestion is for the EU or the Netherlands to apply political pressure with the Syrian regime, the Turkish regime, perhaps also other countries, in order to improve the situation in northern Syria. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much. Same question for you, Mohammed. What can the Netherlands and the European Union do to improve the situation in Gaza?
I think for Netherlands, I think like recognize Palestine as a state. That's something good comparing with other European countries. If Netherlands can recognize that, mean a lot of diplomats movement can be done. And also I'm looking for Netherlands to increase the donations for the Palestinians, especially in Gaza, to overcome the economy problem and the humanitarian one.
Yeah, more financial assistance. And what would it mean for Palestine if it would be recognized as a country by the Netherlands? How would it change the situation?
I think it will change diplomat and political from the way to speak with Israel. Still, Netherlands did not recognize Palestine as a state on the 1967 border, which means that they don't have a mission for the Palestinians themselves. But if that happened by Netherlands, so more missions will be, more political negotiation with the Israeli Palestinians will increase, and also the efforts that the Netherlands will do when it's recognized Palestine as a state will increase in helping the solution itself.
Thanks so much. We have one final question before we're pretty much going to close off the debate.
Yes, hi, I have a question for Fawaz. You say that the Kurdish people have less rights, but for a long time being black or being gay in Europe or America also meant you had less rights, and that's a lot better now. So if nothing changes, it keeps going how it's going now, How do you think the situation for the Kurdish people will be in 5 or 10 or 20 years?
Thank you very much for your question.
Well, there was a very long coordination or like partnership between the Kurdish armed groups and the Western governments. But also what's more important is the political coordination, maybe the political recognition of these governments or self-administration bodies over there. So this really depends on the former role of this administration within the international community. We see Palestine is already known a state maybe for some countries, but in our region actually we don't have any such role. So what's important that in the coming years that the governments, the countries recognize this administration there and try to, support them in diplomatic ways or other political means.
Thanks so much. And then finally, there's a lot of, in a sense, the debate is quite, the situation is harrowing. Like if you look at the violence, the violence in both your instances, what it does to human lives. So I would like to end with, what is your dream? What is your dream for northern Syria? And perhaps, Mohammed, I can start with you. What is your dream for Gaza?
My personal dream, you mean?
Yeah, your personal dream, yeah.
My personal dream that my family, my friends, the 2 million people of Gaza can access freedom of movement. That's really what I want to push this dream forward when I examine the freedom of movement here.
Yeah, freedom of movement means that people can go outside of Gaza, can travel internationally.
For Gaza, it's the basic rights for access for other fundamental rights. So, like to feel the freedom itself. I can't express how it's feel that you are not able to take a decision to travel, like to take a break. It's not your decision. It's the border decision. It's the checkpoint. So the feeling itself, it's very important. And the freedom of movement itself, as a dream for people, it means like they access to all of the life and the livelihood for them. Yeah.
Thanks so much. And I thought it was really nicely symbolized in the movie clip with the boat that couldn't even go onto the sea. Like even there it was held back, so there's no freedom whatsoever. Thanks so much. And what is your dream for North Syria?
Yeah, it's very, I think it is natural life of a person. Like, I want my children to get educated in their own language. I think that's the basic right, if I could have. That's a dream of mine. In another way, I can say also, like, my dream is to go and represent the government of the northeast of Syria in the international arena, the platform. So that's also the second dream. Do you think that's too much?
Thanks so much. Well, I think dreams can never be big enough, but let's see how we slowly move towards reality. But I think they're very touching dreams, and thank you so much for being willing here. For being willing to be here. I see that questions are still rolling in. Perhaps, will you be around here for a few more minutes? Because the questions keep on piling up, so then you can also still ask the questions you have, but we're going to close the discussion here for now. Can I, first of all, we're going to have 2 rounds of applause. Can I first of all have a warm round of applause for Mohammed and Fawaz for being willing to share their story here. And also, the whole reason why we are here is because Jennifer, Pien, and André, you saw walking them around, and they're here in the first floor. They have actually organized this session here. Yeah, Saskia is pointing at them. So many thanks for you for making this possible in the first place. And with that, thank you very much for being here. If you have any further questions, please feel free to hang around here for a moment and ask any questions. And I really hope this was useful to you. So thanks very much for being here.